Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 105 of Fracking Nightmare. It's been about a month since the last episode was broadcast, and a little longer than that since I was last in the studio down here in Plymouth. And the anti-fracking activity is certainly moving up a notch or three, primarily, of course, because the unconventional gas industry and the British government are increasing their efforts to try and get this pernicious industry established in this country. And fortunately, an increasing number of people are doing their own research and coming to their own conclusion that this is an industry that they certainly don't want in their backyard or anybody else's, especially when they realize the impact that it has on water. And of course, without access to fresh water, we have a bit of a problem. And I have to say that even in North Yorkshire, a bit of an irony where we are camped at Kirby Misperton, some of the water there is so heavily chlorinated that I certainly can't use it for drinking tea or coffee. It does seem to be somewhat localized. There's other areas where the water is eminently drinkable. But what an irony that, you know, we're there to protect the water and we can't even drink the water as it is right now. So obviously, goodness knows what it would be once it gets contaminated with gas or with chemicals or with spillages or whatever. And despite the likes of John Dewar, the Chief Executive Officer of Third Energy, saying there is zero, and constantly repeating, zero chance of contamination, that's the same rhetoric that every other community around the world has heard from this industry, only for a few years later for them to be in a world of serious hurt. And tonight, I'm delighted to have as my guest on the show somebody who has come to their own realization. And once they realize the magnitude of the potential impact of this industry, decided that they were going to do everything they possibly could to effectively make sure that didn't happen. So it's with great delight that I welcome Spanner. And hey, I know we had a bit of a problem. You're online with me from Teesside, and we hadn't even got Skype set up on your phone until about 40 minutes ago. But you're looking good there, Spanner.
Oh, thanks, Ian.
Hey, now, Spanner, tell me, how long ago was it that you realised that fracking wasn't really the type of industry that you could embrace with open arms?
Well, as soon as I seen the film, as soon as I seen Gasland, that was about it. I just thought, what are they doing? What are they doing? It's just not on, is it? As soon as you see it, and you just think it goes against everything all humans have ever done in evolution. Basically, I think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So now I think I'm right in saying that I first met you at Crawberry Hill in East Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Is that right?
No. I met you at Balcombe.
At Balcombe. Oh my goodness me. Okay, sorry. It must be age thing.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah.
So that was 2013.
Yeah.
And I was a year out because Crawberry Hill was a year later. So, but now after you went to Balcombe, you took a conscious decision to try and bring about a fundamental change in the attitude of your trade union.
Yeah, without a doubt, because, well, I knew the dangers that fracking brings to everybody, but I also know, like, the union, that it also goes against basically union policies anyway, but I didn't think they had a policy against fracking. I know the TUC have, and we're like part of the TUC. So it was basically, I went to one of the meetings and I said, in any other business, as far as I'm concerned, well, not as far as I'm concerned, to the best of my knowledge, I don't threaten any of you in this room or your kids, but your ignorance to fracking threatens my kid and your own kids. Do something about it. And I said, I just want it put in the minutes, and it's a documented piece of legislation, I suppose, isn't it? So they shuffled and they said, right, we'll do a motion to go to Unite's conference. So we sat down and we read the motion and we set that up, and that was like the slow process of a long. It's a long, slow process because it's a big union.
Getting everybody to agree, to agree the wording must have been tough right from the outset. Because you drove it right through from branch level through district and then ultimately to national, right?
Yeah. Then it went to national conference, and there was then the delegates that only get allowed to choose what gets the percentage of the delegates in the conference itself. But we managed to inform and educate the delegates that were there about the dangers of fracking with our separate fringe conference. And they came along of their own free will, and we give them the information that's readily available, and they obviously voted it through.
Well, I've got the Unite brochure from 2014, I think it is. So we're going to bring that up on screen here. And this is a document, Jobs, Homes and Health, summary of decisions of the July 2014 Unite Policy Conference. And on the environment page there, and we see on the screen here, is the section on hydraulic fracturing. So let me just read this out, Spanner, because I mean, this is very, very significant, and primarily this is here because of your efforts. So let me do you justice and read what this says.
It's not just that. There was 4 other branches and it was a compromise of the 3 another 4 branches.
Okay, but don't be modest. You were the driving force.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. So this is hydraulic fracturing. Unite notes growing international opposition to hydraulic fracking from both local communities and unions, and that the government continues to aggressively pursue a policy designed to promote hydraulic fracturing. Unite is committed to the following. 1. Make members aware of the dangers of fracking. Actively oppose fracking, to use its influence to prevent fracking operations. Advise members not to work on fracking sites, nor deliver materials to such operations. 2. Support and lobby for a moratorium on all fracking activities across the UK. 3. Encourage the Labour Party and Labour-controlled councils to take actions formally opposing the application of hydraulic fracking technology within the UK. 4. Request regional committees support local anti-fracking groups' activities. 5. Encourage members of the union to support campaigns against fracking and to link up with local campaigners. And then finally, support calls for taking profit out of energy production and distribution and favour the public ownership and democratic control of the energy industry, with the direct input of local communities and trade unions in decisions on creating a balanced and sustainable energy policy. And I have to say that I think that is one of the most constructive union policies that I have seen in a long time.
Yeah, it sounds good, doesn't it?
And now
it's just
go on.
They missed a word out from between what went through conference and what went on website, and it's basically to make all members, not just to make members aware. If you look at what went through,
right?
Now, I don't know if that's a typo or something more.
But you spotted that, didn't you? United's committed to make members, and the original wording was make all members. And obviously that's not insignificant. And once again, you picked up the gauntlet on this. And I mean, to that extent, last Monday. So even though this is 2 years after that conference, but I think it was last Monday. Last Monday, you went to a meeting in Durham, a Unite meeting, where Len McCluskey was speaking, and you wanted to challenge him on exactly this point, didn't you? About whether or not the policy had actually been diluted at national level.
Well, I wanted to find out myself. Basically, are they allowed to? Because I don't really know the workings and the meanings of it. And he said, no, they're not allowed to. Whatever goes through a conference has to go through and that has to be the policy. It cannot be changed in any way whatsoever. And I just told him it had been changed, like, oh, a mistake had been made. It might not be deliberate, but a mistake had been made. And he said he'd look into it.
Well, you didn't just take his word for that, did you, though?
Oh no, I've asked him for a written statement.
Well, I've actually got the picture here. This is the picture of Len McCluskey with pen in hand, which of course doesn't tell us very much until we actually look at what it was that he was writing. And you got him to honour his commitment, and this is what Len McCluskey wrote for you on Monday night and handed to you. He wrote, "I intend to check that Unite policy on fracking has not been altered." In other words, that it still insists that all members are educated on the dangers associated with fracking. And, that's... so he signed it around about 8:30 on Monday evening. So Len McCluskey's hopefully back on the case. Now, Unite is a pretty big union, isn't it, Spanner?
Yeah, it's about 1.4 million. They were saying that members. So if 1.4 million members find out the dangers of fracking, which they should, because everybody in the UK should find out about the dangers of it, because it's coming. Oh, they're trying to get it through, aren't they?
Well, they're pushing hard, and I mean, as it said in the policy statement, I think it didn't say something about advise members not to work on fracking sites nor deliver materials to such operations. And of course, we have had, as far as I'm aware, only one driver to date actually turn up at a site and be advised that he was delivering to a company that was engaged or wanted to engage in hydraulic fracturing, and he drove off. And that was young Chris Allport, who did an interview with me actually a couple of weeks ago, and that interview is up on my YouTube channel. But as far as I'm aware, he's not a member of a trade union.
Well, that's it. If more of these drivers who are delivering know the dangers, then it's up to them and their consciousness, and they'll be backed by the union not to deliver it. But if they don't know, it's probably just another delivery to them, and that's the problem, isn't it? They need to be made aware of the dangers of it.
So, Spanner, help me out here. So, if a driver basically realises that he's delivering to a fracking site or a company that is engaged in fracking, and he turns around to his employer and says, "I'm sorry, but actually, I have a union instruction that I'm not to deliver that." Will the union support him, actually stand up and support him? Because, fortunately, Chris Allport's employer understood and respected his personal view and didn't fire him. But I'm guessing that, there's a lot of drivers who would be concerned about losing their job if they took a stance.
Well, to me, and I think it should be up to the shop stewards of the companies to tell the drivers, because it says in all levels. So if the shop stewards know and say, right, to the members, this is a fracking delivery to a fracking site, you don't have to take it. The union should back you and just refuse to do the job. Because it is a lot to take on your own shoulders if you've got responsibilities like mortgages and everything else, isn't it? But the Unite's policy should be, I can't speak for Unite, but they should make the drivers aware and back them up. And he's backed everything else up. He seems a very genuine man, Len McCluskey, for what he says and does.
Well, if Unite or any other union need help in actually getting the word out across their various branches, there are now many, many people around the country who are getting more and more experience of giving public presentations on this industry. And of course, they all have one thing in common as well. They all do the presentations in their own way, whatever it is that they're most concerned about with this industry. But they all insist that people do their own research. They always make the observation, don't take their word for it, go away, do your own research, come to your own decision, which of course is something you'll never ever hear the industry or the government say. So, if when you get word to Len McCluskey or Unite headquarters please feel free to offer the services of, people from right across the country, because we have them, certainly now, I think, pretty much, certainly across all the north of England, well into the East Midlands, right across the south. So there's plenty of people out there that would be delighted to, go along to a branch meeting anytime and, share their insights into this industry.
Yeah, yeah.
So now,
Hello?
I've just got a bit of a question here, because we've heard recently that the GMB policy is completely the opposite. In fact, GMB have only this week come out and called for the government to take stronger action against anti-fracking campaigners who are blockading companies that are delivering to the fracking companies.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that. But I also know members of GMB as well, and they're quite disgusted with it. And some of them have said they're going to leave, but I've told them to just get down to the branch meetings and raise your voice at the meetings and get it minuted and tell them you don't like it. And it's best to engage with them, isn't it, and get them one side, really, because at the end of the day, they're still only a union, and it's supposed to be the strength of the members, not the strength of a couple of elected people at the top.
Exactly, and standing together will make it a lot stronger. Yeah. And it has to be said, obviously, that the blockading of the suppliers has been incredibly effective. I mean, what is it? It's probably about maybe 8 weeks. 8 weeks of blockading of suppliers, random blockading. But I think at least three suppliers have pulled out and stated that they have decided that they will no longer accept contracts from the unconventional gas industry. So it's pretty effective.
All good news.
Yeah. So what's next for you on the campaign, Spanner? Because I mean, you're up there in Teesside. I mean, you've been a fantastic supporter of all the camps down in Yorkshire. I mean, you came down to Crawlbury Hill on a regular basis. You've been coming down to Kirby Misperton. You've been bringing supplies to Kirby Misperton. So what's next for you?
Maybe trying to get my employers themselves to bring out a policy against it, because they've got the same responsibility, haven't they? To all their employers. I work for a supermarket, and the supermarket's got farmland, and I keep telling them that if anybody's threatening the company, surely they need to do something about it, and it's a threat to their company, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. I mean, that was the irony in East Yorkshire, that in West Newton, the fields surrounding the West Newton well site were all, and in Crawlbury Hill even, I think they were all contracted to Birdseye because they were all pea fields. And, I mean, I must confess that knowing that Birdseye had the fields around that area, I wouldn't touch Birdseye peas now. For anything. I mean, the fact that I have no idea, obviously, where the peas in the packet come from, but just in case they came from anywhere near West Newton, because I think there is a very, very strong probability that Rathlin Energy pressurised the well at West Newton and lost control of the well, and that's why they had fire in the hole. But we don't know really, what actually occurred, because they're somewhat less than transparent. No real surprise there. But the pea field's right next door, so why would you run that risk? It's I'm not saying it's necessarily Russian roulette, but you're certainly taking a risk that you have no need to take.
Yeah. Well, that's it. We've got to look after our food, haven't we, and our water and our land, and by any way we can. We have, and of course in Victoria State in Australia, which is a farming state. I mean, they took a look at what had occurred in southern Queensland and basically said, there's no way that industry is coming here. So, common sense does win through, obviously, from time to time. We just have a little bit of difficulty from so many angles trying to get British politicians and British industrialists to adopt an appropriate degree of common sense. They seem to be just driven by pure greed. Yep. that's the way it is, though, isn't it? At the moment.
It is, sadly. Well, hey, Spanner, you know, listen, you did an absolutely amazing job in getting that policy through. I mean, you stayed with it all the way through, from branch, through district, through national level. And even when you saw that the policy had been modified just through, or maybe accidentally, but nonetheless, that the wording had been changed to remove the all. You stayed on the case, and you got Len McCluskey to sign this seminal bit of paper here, stating that he would check to make sure that the policy on fracking had not been diluted. So, Spanner, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and
no problem.
and thanks to where is the young man? Is he behind the camera?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks to David for getting the technology sorted out. So that's wonderful. And I'll see both you guys at Kirby Misperton in the not too distant future.
Yeah. I'll see you again, Ian.
Okay. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
See you now.
Bye.
See you, David. Bye now. Bye. Well, there's just another example of what can be achieved when you put your mind to it and you get after it. It's not necessarily going to happen in 5 minutes, and as you saw there, it was a year plus in getting the motion through to the National Executive, and even after the policy was published, Spanner didn't let up. So, an amazing achievement there. Anyway, we're going to take a short break, and I'll be back with you after this.
If at this point in time you can stand in front of a drill rig and stop it from getting on. The easiest drill rig to stop's the first one. The hardest one will be the 10,000. There'll be more than that though in the UK, because you're doing shale over there predominantly. Shale needs a lot of wells, needs a lot of destruction, poisons a lot of water.
If this gets the tiniest foothold, you're done. So it's now or it's never. Don't think that you've got that long, because it's now or never. So you do it now, you stand up now, and you find something within yourself that you didn't think was there. That's the important thing. You will be confronted by police. They wear their Kevlar suits, and it's a big intimidation thing.
Hey, you've got nobody in front of you. Keep walking. You're delaying this lady. Keep going. Don't push back on her. Keep moving. Now. If you've got to keep going, the officer will keep moving.
It's up to the people of the UK to give their cameras in the face of the Kevlar security, the Kevlar police, who are paid by the corporations. And we have to say no. That's all it is. But it's more than just saying no at a meeting. It's intent. It's the intent of no. It's the knowing that you mean no. That's when you will be unbelievably powerful. You come out in numbers. If they see your grandmother and the mother and the child come out and say, we are not going to accept this, then they are finished. But that's what it takes. Don't sit back and think that anybody's looking out for you. It's you.
And welcome back to part 2 of Fracking Nightmare. Now, in this second part of tonight's show, I'm going to play out the full live stream video that I posted directly to Facebook when I was at Preston New Road on Wednesday, March the 8th. Now, 2 days previously, I had been in Manchester Civil Courts, and with a team of people, we had been working over the weekend to put together a challenge, an attempt by Quadrilla to remove all protest from the road and corral it in a pen. Now, this video was taken 2 days later, after about 100 or so people had gathered at the entrance to the Quadrilla well site on Preston New Road. And at the end of the day, when everybody started to move away and, it was obvious that the day was over, Then Lancashire's equivalent of the tactical aid unit decided that they'd obviously been cooped up all day and needed a little bit of practice. And what transpired was little more than gratuitous aggression, unnecessary aggression, and in fact a greater degree of aggression than we had seen on any of the anti-fracking campaigns to date. And somehow I have a feeling that we're going to see more of this. But we're going to take a look at the background. After we've seen this video, we're going to take a look at the background as to how things have built up to this and the way in which the anti-fracking campaign is evolving. And it links in to why it is that the GMB union have called for the British government to take action against secondary blockading. But take a look at this video. It runs for about 20 minutes or so. And although it starts off a little slow, then as the police start to try to corral and kettle the remaining protectors and just push them up the road for no evident reason, then it does start to perhaps get a little bit, I should say, nasty. And in fact, at one stage, the gentleman who was standing next to me was pushed to the ground and had his wrist broken by one of the officers in the line. So take a look at this. Okay, so this is Preston New Road, and we've had a whole day of effectively blockading quadrilla into the PNR well site, and now they've shut the road. They've shut the road at both ends and turned up mob-handed here. Get back, 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 get
I'm not what you're up for. What's that for? You want to shake my hand? We were going to let you want to shake my hand? You don't really do that. You got children? About the water.
Bye! That's the EU one.
We do.
That's the one that's run over 3 people. I know.
Please stay out of. Stand back.
So after the convoy was lined up for close on about 2.5 hours there, the police have come down mob-handed to effectively corral the road.
Your choice, gentlemen. Everybody give everybody else a hug, because I think you deserve a hug. Everybody else a hug. Give everybody a hug. Well done. Big ups, everybody.
So this is Lancashire, where of course the local, well in fact the county council rejected Quadrilla's application to frack this area just outside Blackpool, but the decision was overruled by central government. Saeed Javed said, you know, basically we don't give a damn what the local people or the county council think or say, and we're just going to overrule. And today there's been over probably about 100 people here plus through the day. A massive own goal by arresting a very, very popular local businessman, John Tootill, the man who's challenged this right from the get-go. He has some amazing educational signs outside of his farm. But this is the way in which the corporate state is facilitated. It is indeed the corporatist police state. So, 100 or so people here today, caused significant delay. There's been, here we go, they're all...
Out the road! The people got the power. Now we can you do it.
This is the anti-fracking community, the fastest growing social movement this country's seen in a long time. Are they arrested? Are they arrested?
No, fucking cave! Run away! Every fucking day, boys! Every fucking day! Tory party stormtroopers! Oh, let's kill this front man!
See, they shut the road. Thank goodness we have live stream. Thank goodness we have the video. Thank goodness we have legal observers. By the way, this is introducing Ben. Played a massive part in our preparation for the result in court on Monday. Because if it wasn't for us being in court on Monday, we wouldn't be able to do this. Everybody would be corralled in a pen 25 metres by 25 metres, about 200 yards or so up the road. So, needless to say, there will probably be a reaction tomorrow. Heavy-handed policing.
It's quite lightweight, this is.
Lightweight today, Roz.
Yeah, lightweight today.
Lightweight today, yeah, till they come back tomorrow.
For the rest.
So, these guys have literally been standing on the gate for the last 10 hours at least, because nobody's got in or out of here since night before 9 o'clock this morning.
Vehicle leaving this bloody site and those wheels washed on the way out. Not one vehicle. You had one job. You had one job.
So if there was 100 people down here every day, I mean, obviously we know 100 people can't make it every day, but if it was just rolling, people came down for, you know, a day a week, a day every 2 weeks, whatever. But, you know, it's quite remarkable what, you know, 100 or so people can achieve. They've shut this operation down for the day, no trucks in or out. Okay, it's taken, you know, 10 police vans to come down and create a way for the crews to get home. So this is, bear in mind, this is the site that is being constructed to facilitate quadrilla. They have permission to drill and frack a well here. Francis Egan is determined to be the first CEO of a company to frack. Of course, he wasn't the CEO when Quadrilla created the seismic events back in 2011. He came on board about a year later, about 2 years later, in early 2013. He's determined to get his place in history as the CEO of the first company to frack.
From tomorrow again.
But the local community have different ideas. And this is what needs to be replicated really right throughout the country, and every community that is being targeted by this pernicious industry, every community that's part of the sacrifice zones, needs to start thinking about how they are going to oppose this industry. You know, there are those of us that will challenge everything we possibly can through the courts. Other people, you know, challenging things through judicial reviews, but ultimately it comes down to boots on the ground.
I haven't got everyone together yet.
They're determined to get another arrest. The guys are trying to slow walk the police van out. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, he went the wrong way, didn't he?
I've got 5 unsold coins if anyone wants to get some. Quick way! Before you get killed! Who wants a phone number for a victim of time? Who wants a phone number for a victim of time? It's not nice being kettled, is it? It's not nice being kettled. Back to your arms! Back to the front, back to the arms!
Yeah, Claire, it's definitely proud of the people, and it's actually remarkable how few people you need. Let's say 100 people down here every day would make a massive difference. And well, as I'm sure most of you watching know, we challenged the attempt to establish the protest penning court, and this was a crucial challenge, because had the ruling gone against us, and had the judge ruled that Quadrilla could create the protest pen, which is intended to be behind a hedge on private land, then it would have set a massive precedent, not just for the anti-fracking campaign, but basically any campaign where people felt that they wanted to express their opinions. Okay. So basically, a few of the protectors here basically making it very clear that they are not going to just allow the police to come down and kettle.
We can't drive down the highway without being
so this is the protectors kettling the police for the moment. How you doing?
Driving without due care and attention, did everybody see that?
I do, yes, yeah. Well, Dash for Gas wasn't mine, that was a guy called Marco Jackson. Oh yeah, here we go. This is the police van looking for some support here. They're looking for support, so here we go. So they're all coming up mob-handed now.
Right. Coming up, they're all mob-handed.
But Voices from the Gas Fields was my my documentary, Voices from the Gas Fields. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure most people watching this have seen Voices from the Gas Fields, but you know, every country where this industry has got itself established, I mean, it's led to phenomenal, contamination of the water, the soil, the air. And these are the people, this is people from the local community that have done their research. They do not want this industry, not just in their backyard, but in anybody else's backyard.
No, they closed it now, didn't they?
But they did, indeed.
Numerous times,
But so what we've got here is, here we've got the police effectively acting as the corporate enforcers. But when there's more people from the local community than there are police, then obviously it's a slightly different ball game.
What do you expect that? Oh, well, I was going to ask you about the. Well, there's not been any fracking so far. Is that true? There hasn't been any so far.
There's only one well been drilled and fracked in the UK, and that was fracked by this company, Quadrilla, and that's the well that triggered 2 seismic events. That's why this has to be stopped.
Out of the road! Police!
See the way they look? This is outrageous. Here they go. Here they come. Here they go. Oh, look at this. Look. That's outrageous. This is the... Look. Whoa. You guys must be very, very proud of yourselves. Very proud of yourselves. Get out of the road. God damn.
Keep walking backwards. Walking backwards.
Yeah? Can you get your hand off me? Get your hand off me. Get your hand off me. 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3. Now, here we go. Hey.
I can't find it.
Hey, get your hand off me. Right now.
What was that? You just flogged him.
You're not even in the
road. You're shoving people off the pavement. You flogged him.
He was on the pavement when you pushed. Get your hand off me.
That was assault as well. You assaulted people.
Picked up. He's got it back here.
You just assaulted 2 people on camera.
Right, this is... Hey!
Get your hands down, control yourself.
This is literally trying to excite movement here.
Control yourself.
Yeah, get a grip. Get a grip.
Control yourself. Calm down, control yourself.
Get out of the way.
I'm not in the way.
I trust that the British people must be very, very proud of their police. Once upon a time, now they recruit just thugs. Absolute thugs.
Hey, come on, you quick yourself back. On to the question. Please disperse in orderly manner.
They're gonna kill. The corporate police state. Is this guy? This is the guy who's just pushed 3099, the guy who we just caught on camera pushing the woman here. So that's another complaint. You guys must be very, very proud of yourselves. And here is driving. This is a deliberate attempt. He's just been instructed to drive as fast as he can. That's unbelievable.
That is so fucking irresponsible.
Irresponsible!
I want to break free. I want to break free.
Oh. Okay. Let them walk home. I'm out of breath. That's pretty disgusting policing after restraint. And what's interesting is that these guys are an embarrassment to their fellow officers. We've had the PLOs actually sharing their disgust at the behaviour, particularly of these guys. Okay, they decided to crawl back to their trucks.
You're walking out and you're just a bunch of muppies! 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 Corporate thugs! You're just a bunch of muppies! Corporate thugs!
Well, you know, the reality is, if there were sufficient numbers down here at Preston New Road, then they wouldn't bring. In fact, there's a significant number of these police that would probably not want to come down here. So it needs numbers. It's a numbers game. The vast majority of people in this country do not want this industry, and yet the government is going to use its corporate enforcement officers to just push this through. It relies on public apathy, relies on willful ignorance, and it relies on thugs. And this is the guy. Great smile. Great smile.
He's a violent man.
Oh, right, there we go. This is his trainee.
This one's just as bad.
Oh, unbelievable. God damn. These guys, they behave like they're all fetted up. Anyway. That's it, I've had enough for today. Well, so I'm about 200 yards from the well site, but for just those of you still watching, this is where the pen would be. This, basically, had we not challenged the court in the courts on Monday, there wouldn't have been any of this on the road today, because everybody would have been corralled in the pen here, behind the hedge, away from sight, and anybody basically protesting on the road would have been arrested under Section 14 of the Public Order Act. That's why the challenge in court on Monday was so fundamental, not just for the anti-fracking campaign, but basically for any protest against anything in this country. So, you know, we're fortunately on the ball, and anything like this that comes up, then we will challenge. But so yeah, that's the well site. Of course, Quadrilla in the planning application said that they would have completed this in 8 weeks. It's now 8 weeks and a bit. They're obviously nowhere near finished on the construction of the pad, yet Quadrilla state in all their press releases that the protesters have not actually impeded their schedule in any way, which either means that they lied on the planning application, or they're lying and just trying to save face by having saying that they're still on schedule. An interesting day.
Interesting day. I think we just know that it's Quadrilla. They're lying, whichever way it was. It's lying.
But you know, it's not enough, as David Monk in Australia says. It's not enough to just say no. It's not enough to go say no at a meeting. You actually got to get your feet on the ground, because ultimately these people here have tried everything. They've still got a judicial review. That's what it makes it even more incredible, is that there's a judicial review due to be heard in the Manchester courts in a couple of weeks' time. And you know, Quadrilla obviously think that that's a formality and that they can just proceed with this. But at that point, you know, the local community, just like in Yorkshire, would have tried everything they possibly can, and then all you're left with is boots on the ground. So I think the police have all now retreated to their vehicles. So whew.
A few out, but they were driving people along the road. How come it suddenly changed back round to being able to drive the police back to there?
Well, because the police didn't want to get too far away from their vehicles, so they had to walk back.
That's good for going home later.
Anyway, that's it from me. That was
Goodbye from me.
goodbye from all of us. And well, you know, I'm heading back to Kirby Misperton. But I'm sure we'll get back over to Preston New Road at some juncture. But meanwhile, everybody who's really within distance of reasonable distance of Preston New Road, try and come down here just one day a week, one day a month. But you know, if we had a rolling crew of, you know, a couple of thousand people, and you know, people coming down once a week, once a month, whatever they could manage, then it would obviously make Quadrilla's life a lot more difficult. And let's make use of it, because it's very, very clear that the intention is to start corralling protesters into protest pens. And of course, if that was in Russia or North Korea or Iran, the media would be all over it, challenging, you know, the attack on democracy. Well, what you've just seen is how the corporatocracy pushes through an extremely unpopular corporate agenda. But of course, it hasn't got there yet, because it's still only a pad construction. So we've got a long way to go. Okay, so it's dusk, and I'm going to head out. So thanks very much for joining me. And please share this. Please share this around Facebook. Let others see just how the British corporate state is driving through this agenda. And welcome back to part 3 of Fracking Nightmare. Now, the purpose of showing that wasn't to put anybody off, quite the opposite, because that was very much at the end of the day, after probably 2/3 plus of the people that had been at the Preston New Road World site had drifted off. It was pretty much the end of the day. Obviously, people had kids to pick up from school or had to get home, you know, to take care of family chores. And, you know, it was just those who had perhaps no other prior arrangements for the evening that were there. And as you saw, it was totally unnecessary because the people would have disbanded in their own time. Nothing was coming in or out of the well site. It was simply gratuitous aggression. And I think I'm right in saying it was Officer 2233 who was responsible for pushing the gentleman who was walking next to me, knocking his phone out of his hand and breaking his wrist as he fell. So it comes down to numbers, and this is exactly what we have seen elsewhere. When the police have the numerical superiority, they will behave with unnecessary force. When the protectors have the numerical superiority, the police seem actually quite happy to sit back and just monitor to make sure that there won't be a breach of the peace, which of course is precisely what they should be doing anyway. Just as occurred in Poland, where the police made it very clear that they were not going to get involved in what was clearly a political issue, and that if the Polish government basically wanted the communities to accept the unconventional gas industry, then it was up to the Polish government to convince the people accordingly. It wasn't for the police to behave as corporate enforcement officers, which is exactly what is occurring in this country. And, you know, some of the police officers are very, very uncomfortable in this role. Others relish the role. Others basically are just literally engaging with the protesters for want of gratuitous aggression. No other way to describe it. So it's about numbers. It's about getting more people down to Preston New Road so that basically, you know, the opportunity to blockade the Preston New Road site is a bit easier than it is with half a dozen people. Now, elsewhere, of course, the other blockades have been very successful. And as I said earlier, I think there's at least 3 companies that have pulled out so far and stated that they will not engage in any contract with any of the unconventional gas companies. Now, earlier we discussed the GMB union are calling on the British government to take stronger action against secondary blockading, whereas Unite have a very clear policy, which is to educate all their members in the dangers of unconventional gas and to encourage their members not to deliver to companies that are engaged in this process. Now, how have things unfolded? Well, like I said, that was 2 days after we'd been in court. And we were in court because on the previous Saturday week, there had been a bit of an invasion of the Quadrilla well site, well, the field surrounding the well site. Probably no more than 25, 30 people. And the photographic evidence would suggest that some of those people who went onto the field were actually facilitated by the police. So consider the possibility that this was a contrived event to get the injunction that had been in place up until October the 8th of last year restored, so that anybody who ventured onto the field would effectively potentially suffer a custodial sentence for contempt of court, i.e. breach of the injunction. But when the papers were posted around the site, it became evident that this wasn't just a simple injunction. The company were also looking to establish protest pens, 20 metre by 20 metre fenced-in pens off the road, behind a hedge, where nobody could see anything, and corral the protesters away from any kind of public scrutiny, and certainly keep them well away from being able to scrutinise anything that Quadrilla were doing. So this was the bundle. That's the bundle that Quadrilla put on the in front of the judge on the Monday. Obviously, Quadrilla didn't know that we were going to challenge this application until literally about 15 minutes before the hearing, when we submitted our bundle, which is a little bit smaller, just 45 odd pages, quite succinct, but very clear in our reasons for wanting to object to the protest pens. Not least, of course, because Quadrilla have a track record of breaching their planning permissions, breaching Environment Agency requirements, And they obviously do not like the fact that they are being scrutinised at every step of the way, which is why they wanted the pens to get everybody away from their front gate. Well, the Judge Rayner, absolutely understood what the concerns were, and he presented the proposition to Quadrilla quite early on in the proceedings that maybe they could just submit the application for the injunction as per the earlier ruling, i.e. just the field. But they rejected that. But they did make a very generous offer. They offered to exclude me. So I would potentially, had I accepted that offer, be the only person that would be allowed to actually protest on the street, because I would effectively be banned from the pens, whereas everybody else would be banned from protesting on the public road. Well, clearly, I made it abundantly clear that there was no possibility of me accepting that. I was there to ensure that the pens were not approved, period. Well, although I was seeking an adjournment to be able to get proper legal representation, ultimately that wasn't necessary, because the judge clearly read through this document from cover to cover during his lunch break, and it was very clear that in the afternoon session he was, say, a little bit more susceptible, if you like, to our request to drop the pens, and that was the ultimate ruling. So the injunction was put back in place without the pens. And the video that you've just watched occurred 2 days after that court hearing. And of course, had we not contested that in the courts, then everybody would have been corralled in the pens. Now, how did we get to that stage? Well, for the first 3 weeks of the PNR campaign, it was made very clear that anything other than the agreement of a 15-minute slow walk for every vehicle inside the Quadrilla compound, anything else would not be acceptable. And people were being physically pushed to one side off the road by people who considered themselves to be part of the protection community. So clearly something wasn't right. And regular viewers of Fracking Nightmare will know that I have questioned the validity and indeed the reasoning behind this 15-minute agreement right from the outset, because I know the way the industry works, and any agreement, it doesn't matter whether it's 15 minutes, 15 hours, or even a day, any agreement is simply then programmed into the work schedule. It's as simple as that. So it's a minor irritation, nothing more. So the only way in which the campaign can be effective is to be completely random, with no agreements in place, with a situation where nobody knows what's going to happen from one day to the next, whether that's the protection community or the police. The role of the protectors is to constantly redefine what constitutes peaceful protest. The role of the police is to facilitate peaceful protest. And the Crown Prosecution Service's own guidelines state very clearly that peaceful protest may cause disruption and nuisance, but that does not necessarily make it unlawful. So obviously it was very clear that somebody had an agreement, and we had asked very civilly who that was. But every time those questions were asked, they were met with vitriolic rants. So consequently, ultimately, after the police were constantly using Section 14 of the Public Order Act to arrest people, which implied that there was an agreed procession order in place, and that those people that were being arrested under Section 14 were being arrested because they were taking an action which was outside of the agreement. So the Freedom of Information request was submitted, and this is in the public domain. You can find it on the whatdotheyknow.com website. You can bring it up on screen here, but you won't be able to read all that. So I'm going to read out the key parts of it here. So the question 1, please can I be provided with a written notice requesting advance notice permitting the 15-minute slow walks of all lorries entering the Quadrilla development site commencing in January 2017. And then the person who made the request writes, I have witnessed the police issuing Section 12.1 warnings of arrest to demonstrators on the 16th of January, citing that they were facilitating peaceful demonstration by allowing 15-minute slow walks at the quadrilla site within the agreed procession agreement. The police will have a good record of this incident at between 9:38 and 10:18 on that morning. The warnings of breaching the agreement was delivered by Officer KA10. Part 2 of this, therefore, as well as the advance notice, please can I be supplied with any other written emails, letters or legal agreements between Lancashire Police, the organisers who applied for the advance notice, and all other interested parties, to include the Quadrilla Group of associated companies. And Part 3, finally, if the 15-minute slow walks are being undertaken just by a verbal agreement, please confirm all parties that agreed to a verbal agreement and how this complies with the requirements of Part 2, Section 1 of the 1986 Act, requiring advance notice of procession. So that was the question. The response is, your request has now been considered and the information you are seeking cannot be provided at this time. So the next paragraph, which is ostensibly the response, is obviously incomplete at this juncture. And the response is, please be advised that there is no formal agreement between Quadrilla and Lancashire Constabulary. We have not received any advance notice of public processions, and the 15-minute slow walks were agreed between Quadrilla and a number of protest groups. The slow walks were facilitated within a compound controlled by Quadrilla. We therefore have no recorded information to provide in response to this request. Well, this actually is in direct contradiction to a NetPol document or newsletter which was released about a month ago, which stated categorically that NetPol were aware that there had been meetings between the police and the designated protest groups. Well, a couple of days ago, I put out an open invitation for anybody who had been party to these agreements to give me a call with the possibility of maybe coming on to Fracking Nightmare this evening to discuss the process and the thinking behind reaching these agreements. But I think we can safely assume by the silence over the last couple of days that those who did enter into this agreement have perhaps now come to the conclusion that this was perhaps not a particularly smart move, and that maybe they were coerced or deceived or pressured in some way into coming to an agreement which would suit no one really other than Quadrilla, and enable Quadrilla to simply program in a 15-minute agreement while the driver went off the tachograph and took a tea break. Certainly, since the first slow walk in front of a truck, which I think was on January the 25th, where 2 ladies were arrested, and then the subsequent 4-man lock-on on the following Tuesday, and certainly since then, so about the last 7 weeks or so, the campaign has increased in intensity, and it is very clear that Quadrilla are hurting. Either they're hurting or they're lying, because in their planning application, and this is what we part of what we submitted to the courts, it was very clear in the planning application that Quadrilla had stated that the construction phase of the well site would take 8 weeks. Well, they are now well over the 8 weeks, and the well site is nowhere near reaching completion. So either they got it very wrong, or the activities in front of Preston New Road and the activities at the various suppliers are having an effect. And you know what? The reality is, it doesn't really matter if the British government tries to change the law, because an increasing number of people right across the country know that those laws will be unjust. And if a law is unjust, it's only a statute. It has no standing in common law, and the people will make the decision accordingly. And it is also important for people to perhaps bear in mind that it is possible for a jury to instruct a judge to amend a law. Now, this is not very well known for fairly obvious reasons, the British establishment doesn't want people becoming aware of this. But if a jury decides that a law is unjust, then they can request that the judge repeal that law, or at least initiate the process to have the law repealed or at least amended. So as time goes on, as this industry becomes increasingly more desperate, which it will do, then there is no doubt that more and more communities will get involved. Now, just this week, we've had a second application approved in Nottingham, and the communities in the East Midlands are starting to get themselves mobilised. Communities in North Yorkshire are getting themselves mobilised. INEOS, who have stated quite categorically that their only interest in mining the gas is for their own feedstock. It won't be getting anywhere near the public distribution system. So this is purely so that INEOS and ultimately Jim Ratcliffe can make even more profit. And they are prepared to put these communities at risk. And of course, it goes beyond just the communities, because as we've seen elsewhere in the world, once the water is contaminated in a particular area, then the devastation is extremely widespread. So the learning that perhaps one takes from this, and hopefully other communities will take on board, is that any discussion between the anti-fracking campaign groups or individuals, any discussion can only benefit the industry and or the police. There must be no discussion. It has to be completely random, allowing people maximum creativity, allowing people to define for themselves what constitutes peaceful protest. And if people come in from elsewhere and offer their support in ways that maybe are different from the way in which you might do it, then embrace it. The key element is that it is peaceful. And also take on board the Crown Prosecution Service's own guidelines that peaceful protest may cause disruption and nuisance, but that does not make it unlawful. And let's bear in mind that the number of convictions so far out of the 600 or so arrests that have occurred since the Balcombe campaign in 2013, the number of convictions I could count on the fingers of, well, maybe two hands now. But it's a minuscule percentage. In most cases, the arrests are purely intimidatory. The police behaviour needs to be monitored. If aggression, such as was witnessed in the video, continues, then obviously complaints must be lodged and the process must be followed through. Now, the Police and Crime Commissioner in Lancashire has called upon the British government to provide extra funding for the policing, because I think he's realising that the implications of police requirements at Preston New Road aren't going to diminish anytime soon. There have also been calls for Quadrilla to pay directly for the police, and that is something that I would urge caution on. As we saw in Ireland, in County Mayo, when Shell were looking to build their gas refinery there from the Corrie gas field, where the Gardaí, the Irish police, were taken directly onto the Shell payroll, the level of brutality dished out by the Irish police was just totally outrageous and actually so unacceptable. And very few people outside of Ireland are aware of this, but this is one of the reasons that there are no Shell petrol stations in Ireland, because the people right across the country boycotted Shell petrol stations. And Shell was forced to go through a major rebranding exercise, and that's why all around Ireland now, when you're driving around Ireland, you'll see Topaz petrol stations. There's only one Topaz petrol station outside of the Republic of Ireland, and that's about 150 metres across the border on the Dublin-Belfast road. So it was a Shell petrol station, but it was obviously a little bit too close for comfort. So that was also changed to Topaz. So even though Shell got their refinery built, the cost as a result of the outrageous aggression shown and perpetrated by the Irish police cost them dear. This industry must never get a foothold in this country. And the fact that the anti-fracking community is so diverse, the fact that there is at times no cohesion is an asset. Because if we don't know what's going to happen next, then neither do the police and nor the industry. And that's the way it needs to stay. 2017 is the year the unconventional gas industry thinks it's going to get its bits in the ground. We know different. Thanks for joining us. See you soon.